Still smarting from Russia's refusal to sell it the advanced S-400 missile defense system. So what is a spurned business partner to do? Well, how about unveiling a new homegrown air defense system? I-24 News defense correspondent Daniel Tzemach has the details.
An Iranian-made long-range missile system was unveiled as tensions heat up between the Islamic Republic and the United States. The Bavar 373 is a surface-to-air missile system that has the ability to recognize 100 targets simultaneously and release missiles from 6 different launchers.
When the enemy uses force, you should utilize all your power against it. Talks are useless in this case. When the enemy uses fighter jets, warships, drones, and long-range missiles against us, then we should go after it, believing in our military power. And this is where we need the Bavar 373.
Iran has been manufacturing its own weapons for nearly 30 years, but has often been accused by Western security experts of exaggerating its weapons capabilities. The system's unveiling comes with the intensifying conflict in the Strait of Hormuz. Tankers have been seized in a war of words launched with the United States, which recruited the United Kingdom and Australia to join a military alliance in the Strait to challenge Iran. Iran is not taking the situation lightly.
Now that our enemies and the other side do not accept logic, there is no place for responding with logic.
Earlier this month, Iran unveiled 3 other weapon systems with precision-guided capabilities. The U.S. has ramped up pressure on Iran through sanctions and diplomatic efforts to prevent nuclear weapons development. Meanwhile, the country is working to improve its weapons capabilities with long-range missile systems like the Bavar 373.
Also today, the head of an Iranian-backed Shiite paramilitary force is now walking back a serious accusation that his group made against the United States on Wednesday. Faleh El-Fayad leads the Hashed al-Sha'abi forces in Iraq, and he says that one of his deputies should not have said that the U.S. was behind a string of recent explosions at the group's bases. Fayad now says that preliminary investigations have only shown that explosions like this one earlier this month north of Baghdad were not accidents and were caused by external forces. The Pentagon has fully denied being behind the attacks. All right, for more on these developments, we're now joined by Asaf Ramirowsky and Matt Brodsky. Asaf is a fellow at the Middle East Forum, and Matt is a senior fellow at the Security Studies Group. Thanks for being with us. Asaf, let's start with you. Iran is boasting that its mobile surface-to-air system is better than the S-300 and almost as advanced, if not more so, than the S-400. So what are the capabilities of this new system of the Bavar 373?
Well, they claim that they can go to about 124 miles, and of course they can shoot from multiple targets, and of course have the capability of shooting simultaneously. So, I mean, that's again, as your correspondent mentioned, they've made threats in the past about but they've done that, and you're seeing that, and the fact that in June they took out one of our drones. They are definitely not. They are testing the waters, but they're willing to act upon it. And I think that all of this means that they're serious about doing business. You know, when it comes to what they see as a threat to themselves. It's also concerning, of course, that as it relates to the sanctions, the fact that the Russians refuse to sell them, you know, as far as technology when it comes to the S-400s, developing their own, speaks volumes about the international relations as far as Russian-Iranian ties. To that end, you're still seeing the fact that the Iranians are willing to move this along as far as they can take it by doing whatever they can to ensure the fact that they are the sovereign power in the region. Moreover, you're seeing the fact that you have a development of conventional weaponry versus non-conventional weaponry, that they're willing to establish themselves as the force in the region.
Matt, Iran really made a big deal out of this missile defense system, a huge unveiling. What is the regime in Tehran trying to signal with this display of the new missile defense system? Who is this aimed for? Is the target audience domestic? Is the target audience international, or both?
First, it's designed mostly at the United States and at Israel and to an extent Europe, because they're still part of the whole negotiations game about everything that's happening there in the region. But when we look at this system specifically, it is one component that is more like the S-300 than it is like the S-400, which is supposed to be a far more advanced system. It is supposed to be able to target more than a different system that it operates, which is called the third Hordad system. That is something that Israel has destroyed before inside of Syria when it was being unpacked in the Homs province at the T4 base. So it's something that we know already that Israel has a interest in making sure that it does not basically intercept Israeli aircraft. Now, if what Iran is basically saying with this is that they were able to shoot down a U.S. drone with a third Hordad system. So they're basically pounding their chest and saying that we can cause problems around the region, and it's obviously sending signals to the right people who are picking it up.
Well, as you say, this is intended as a signal to Israel, and Prime Minister Netanyahu sending his own signals, hinting that it is indeed Israel that has been behind Iranian sites in Iraq. The Prime Minister was speaking in an interview with the Russian-language Israeli TV channel 9, and he was asked whether Israel would operate against Iranian targets in Iraq if needed. And here's what he said. He said, "We are operating not just if needed, we are operating in many areas against a state that wants to annihilate us. Of course, I gave the security forces a free hand and instructed them to do anything necessary to thwart Iran's plans." Matt, many people are seeing this as basically an admission, Israel saying, yeah, we are behind those attacks on Iraq. What's your read?
It's close to it, but it's still more along the lines of his previous formulation. If you remember, inside of Syria, there were a period of years where Israel always maintained plausible deniability up until they made the strategic decision that they were going to admit that they were doing these types of attacks in Syria. They're not at that point yet with Iraq, but it still is very important to keep in mind also. There used to be this discussion over how far Russia was going to try to keep Iran away from the Golan Heights. What Netanyahu is saying is that it's not about miles from Israel, it's about where offensive weaponry that Iran is going to base and where it can strike Israel from. So if they have missiles that can strike at Israel from inside of Iraq, presumably what he's saying is he will react there if necessary.
All right, Matt, thanks so much. Matt Brodsky, Asaf, Ramirowsky, appreciate it. Well, Israel is just weeks away from its latest round